Dissect, talk to me, damn it, or else I'm gonna throw you in the fire!
You stupid bitch, you filthy... State of Fear. Welcome back to Flyover State of Fear. It's me and Brian. How you doing, Brian?
I'm good.
You look very excited today. You look the dark side's calling you.
You know, I was mugging. I was feeling evil. I was doing my.
Well, Brian, you're making a Brian Cox face.
That's right. I got a real Brian Cox face.
So we're talking about Autopsy.
Get to really furrow the brow and kind of get the creases going, really show the age.
I mean, I will, as the show goes, we'll eventually get an Autopsy of Jane Doe, but literally the one movie for in the height of the Succession lead up, I was like, if you like Brian Cox, I got a movie for you.
I'm out here just plugging away on The Long Kiss Goodnight my whole life, just come on, everybody. Remember that he's in The Long Kiss Goodnight.
We'll get to him in a minute, but his filmography is fucking wild when you.
I'll tell you what, man. The sleeper for me is always Super Troopers. God, I wish the dude would do more comedy. You know where he pops up too doing comedy? He's on Frasier. He ends up playing Daphne's dad on Frasier. He's only in one episode.
No, I remember that because
it's bananas, and I was like, man, this dude should have done more comedy.
It was The Wedding, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know if I know there's one. My wife is the Frasier expert, but I've seen a lot of Frasier, and there's definitely one where they're either in England or he's in town, and he has a job which is basically guys pay him to hit on their girlfriends, and then they punch him in the stomach to impress the girl.
I don't remember that at all. We watched Frasier during
oh,
years.
It's definitely near the it's in the later into the run. It's in the later seasons.
Anyway, welcome to Flyover. Welcome to Flyover State of Frasier. Oh, I was gonna say Flyover State of Frasier. And Brian
Cox could be a very different show.
Well, I think we'd get our old co-host back if we did Flyover State of Frasier.
True.
And we'd be sherry experts. This is not a bad idea. We were going to workshop this.
I was going to say, we get a wine club going for try to drink their drinks during the episode. I mean, this thing's simmering. This is an idea.
One of the best Frasier episode is when he's trying to do the fancy dinner party, but no one wants to show up, and he just keeps calling, and then people show up, but it puts them in bad situations. And he's like, no, sit down. Anyway, that's not why we're here. Brian.
We're not here to talk about... All right.
How the hell have you been since the last time we discussed movies in this capacity? And as always, got any good you always have some good recommendations for us.
Well, it's funny. I was looking back through my now watchings, and since the recording of our last episode, I've actually been kind of light on horror, weirdly. Not, just happened, or at least I wasn't documenting the horror I was watching, which means I was watching older stuff that I've seen a lot.
So we flipped. So I'm just going to read my list because I realized...
You just chugged through, right?
Yeah, since Barbarian, I have watched. And I'm just going to read horrors. Haunt, which is just a fucking Halloween class. That's now a Halloween, not classic, but good rotation. House of Darkness, which was one of the worst movies I've ever seen. It was just 2 hours of talking with a shitty reveal. Joyride, fun little trip down, early 2000s memory lane with Paul Walker.
That's
and
Paul Walker one,
Steven Zahn.
Did we do is that a Flyover movie?
Never did Joyride on Flyover.
No. What am I thinking of? The Paul Walker.
You're thinking of Running Scared, which is not, but does feature pedophiles.
Terrible movie.
I did watch the one I highly, highly recommend, and my brother-in-law John has been telling me to watch for about 2 years. Terrified on Shudder, which is an Argentine
tweeting about
film.
That.
Anyone listening and you yourself, give it a watch. It truly is a especially if you let yourself get like absorbed by the movie. It features scenes of sleep is going to be hard tonight, which is fun and rare. Um, I've watched Red Eye immediately after that because
I also recently revisited, not that recently, but I revisited Red Eye.
Well, I picked up the Blu-ray, or I'm sorry, I think it was a 4K they made, and then Cillian Murphy just like on that Oppenheimer, train. And then I Know What You Did Last Summer. I revisited it, and I have news. I enjoyed myself this time because I've never really given it a fair shake, and I always thought it was really fucking bad. Nah, really fun. There's some cool shit. There's some fun shit in that.
Well, it's very much a Scream clone. There were a lot of them at that time, and the quality on most of them is pretty much right around the same level. Like I Know What You Did Last Summer, Urban Legend, Halloween
They're similar. I
H2O
think
are all like right at the same level,
I
kind of.
think I was just always a urban legend girly and not
Sure.
a I Know What You Did Last.
I don't particularly like I Know What You Did Last Summer, but I agree.
So
You
I
know,
revisited it and I had fun
it's
with it,
solid.
and I was like, okay, I get it. I get it if you saw this too and grew up with it. I never gave that. I never gave it that respect up until about a week ago. The last one is I came home from the beach. I was done with the beach. It's too hot. I wanted to come in. I needed movies, and I put on Sinister, which was just the weirdest casual like throw on because
Ooh.
of all the fucking movies. For some reason, that one just I like the movie. It just does not, the scares are just not there. I'm just like, yeah, no, there's some creepy videos, but like I think over the years of just thinking of Bagul as like a Slipknot character and the way he pops up is more comedic to me than it was when I saw it in like 2010
Sure. I can
or
see that.
2011 or whatever. It came in 2012, I think. Anyway, all good movie. Are all movies I didn't hate except for that House of Darkness. That was actually Justin Long too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but it was like fucking boring, bad.
Just was
Um,
bad.
so that's my list for one. So a lot there.
Whew.
But we're talking about Autopsy of Jane Doe today, and
Oh,
I
we're just
actually.
not going to talk about the movies I watched at all.
Oh,
Then we're just
what did you watch?
gonna
What did you
skip
watch?
right over it, huh?
Yeah, because I
I mean,
like
I only had
doing.
a couple, but I mean, we don't have to pass them by
This is
altogether.
what you do to all of us. What did you watch, sir?
I would never. I mean, well, I did. I finally, after we lost the passing of the great character actor Treat Williams, I was trying to find Deep Rising, a
Mm.
classic monster movie. I believe it was '98, and I did finally get a hold of that through my local library, support your local library, and it's it was a very fun '90s monster movie where the CGI doesn't quite hold up, but it's still a blast, and a real great cast of people who went on to be kind of famous character actory, so that's
Oh,
fun.
that's always fun when that pops. They just
Yeah,
pop
and
up.
then I actually ended up turning it into a double feature and watching Deep Blue Sea. I was like,
Ooh, that's when you watch Deep Blue
do it
Sea.
deep in a
Yeah.
deep, deep it up. And then we just were kind of talking about it off camera, and I don't want to get too deep into it because it may be a future episode. But I watched Infinity Pool,
Yep.
and that was a very interesting watch, and maybe my favorite of the recent rich people at a resort and horrible shit
Dude,
starts happening to them.
it blew. Like I'll save it a little bit, but like when I watched Infinity Pool, same thing. I went in with the okay, it's gonna be this like rich kind of. I've seen some blew
I
me
didn't even
away.
really see any trailers. I kind of had no idea what I was getting into,
I read the
actually.
description. I just
Okay.
knew like horror, me goth. Alec, no, not is that Alexander Skarsgård? No,
Yeah, it's Alexander
Bill.
Skarsgård
That's
now.
okay. I truly get the Skarsgårds switch. Uh, kind of had an idea, but I didn't know, and it was a great going in blind movie.
Oh,
And
definitely.
I think the vagity talking. I think the way they incorporated all the shit
Mhm.
just works for that movie, and
Yeah, absolutely.
it was probably my favorite Mia Goth performance so far.
Yeah, but I haven't seen Pearl.
Pearl's
Is the
great.
thing.
I mean, she's excellent in Pearl. It's just a different type of crazy
Yeah,
that
I've
she's
heard Pearl is better than X, and I want to see it. I just
they
haven't yet.
they are different. I don't know how to explain it. It's all different. They're two different tones, Pearl and X.
Yeah.
Pearl is more of an unhinged drama ish.
Okay.
You know, it's more of a dramatic movie with weird shit that's a little satirical than horror at
Yeah.
some
X
points.
was more of a
And then
traditional slasher
X is a slasher
vibe.
that's also being a bit of a satire. Like,
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know how to explain it,
Absolutely.
but I think you'll enjoy it. But yeah, very good. She's great. No, that's awesome. I was excited when I saw you watching Infinity Pool because like, ooh, finally someone to talk
Yeah,
to.
ooh,
But speaking of someone to talk to,
now we
I
can
picked
talk about.
I picked Autopsy of Jane Doe, which I've been wanting to cover on the show for some time. Um, and the reason for that is I saw this for the first time last year, and I kind of didn't stop thinking about it for a while since last year. Like, it was one of those ones that just like hooked me and got me, and I was creeped out by it, but I was like intrigued. It just everything worked for me with the movie. And then I watched it again not too long after, and this is probably my third time watching it. So, had you seen it before?
Yeah, this one, this one had a fair amount of hype around it. I think I feel like it got a
Okay.
good amount of buzz when it came out. Not like it got. I guess the hype is the wrong word, but like when it was coming out and more people were seeing it, I had heard good buzz about it, so I watched it. I liked it a lot, but I wasn't like as hyped on it as everybody else.
Sure.
So I was excited to go back this time and kind of like see what I thought about it again, and like
Yeah.
and and see how it played a second viewing, kind of again with like a little bit more of an idea of what I'm getting into and stuff, because that
No, it makes
oftentimes has
sense.
an effect.
Yeah, because it's a 2016 release. It's the same director as Troll Hunter. This is his follow up, and then actually he made Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark afterwards, which
Yeah.
I didn't think was as strong as it could have been as a movie.
No, it was tough. It was riding a very tough line,
Yeah, it
unfortunately. That
wanted to
one.
more. It wanted to be a harder horror than it was allowed to be, and it just.
Yeah.
But good filmmaker. Andre Overdahl. If I
Okay.
say his name wrong, there's a lot of symbols and stuff. So, um, but real.
If you made Troll Hunter, yeah, he's probably like Swedish,
He's
some kind of
Swedish, yeah,
Norwegian person.
and so this actually of our synopsis has one line, and it's great because this movie could be a stage play. A coroner and his son conduct an autopsy on a beautiful Jane Doe murder victim and find increasingly bizarre clues. Perfect
Yeah,
description.
that's really good. That's very
Um,
solid.
what's funny about it, speaking while we're talking about the director is he was inspired after seeing The Conjuring, and he called his agent and told him they need to find a good horror script. A month later, they showed him this script, which was one of the blacklist scripts, and yeah, and then he made, which is really cool to hear because I think now The Conjuring has become sort of a somewhat of a punchline
Well,
sometimes.
it's like pop horror.
Yeah,
It doesn't get a lot of respect. It's kind of like it's like horror that your mom can watch.
yeah, but that
Like
first one was so viscerally scary the first time
yeah.
seeing it, or at least I remember. It fucking
Well, and
got me.
also because it kind of spawned a franchise and has been also so imitated. I think that dilutes it a bit. I do agree that like standing alone, the original Conjuring is still very good.
Yeah,
Like
like I don't think the original Conjuring is one that it's like something your mom can watch. There's
yeah,
parts of it that sensitive.
I would even say I agree with that. Even though it has that reputation, I would
That's what I mean.
agree
That's what
that
I'm getting
it's
at.
not really for everyone.
That's what
Yeah,
I'm getting at. That first one is this thing, and you could tell like James Wan had a vision and a horror he wanted to portray, and it did have that 70s feeling that all filmmakers are trying to chase for a while. Of the first one, the rest in the series are its own entity in itself. Why I wanted to bring up this point of hammer on is it's really cool to hear. Oh, this little contained horror movie was inspired by a pop horror movie, and I was like, wow, that shit was actually scary.
yeah.
Because, yeah. So Jane Doe is just a few. I have a few facts and accolades. Um, our lead actress, Olin Catherine Kelly, was selected because she had a knowledge of yoga and helped her control her body and breathing, which would have been important because as much as we could get used to of her on the slab, it's a real person and not a dummy as much as they could do. And it goes a long way and it shows. The other, and we'll talk more into that. And the other kind of fun fact I have is, and where I resaw the thing and goes, ooh, I gotta revisit this shit, is it was number 61 on Shudder's 101 horror movie moments. I thought that was cool.
Like the reveal of
It was the reveal of they chose the reveal of the tattoos.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought.
I think that was more of the what the fuck.
In my mind, that maybe that's why, maybe because I think I watched that series, that might be why that moment in my mind is more of the climax when it's really kind of like the end of the second act reveal, and then you build into the kind of climax is like the final act from
Yeah, I get that.
because like in my mind I was thinking, I was like, that's kind of the big final reveal of that, and then but then it wasn't, so maybe that's why. Anyway,
we'll just go right in. I mean, there's some questions we'll bring up along the way.
Well, yeah, I mean, we can talk real quick. This is just off the top, a bottle movie. All takes place
This could be a stage
in one
play.
location. Real small cast. You got Brian Cox. You got Emil Hirsch. I don't know. Emil Hirsch is one of those guys, questionable person kind of guy. Good actor, obviously.
We'll just keep it as a good actor. I think he's a piece of shit in real life, but this movie's very good. I think that's where
it's like we're not getting into that. At your own discretion, though.
Yes, I like that distinction, and thank you for mentioning that. What also I think is really cool about this movie, and old people like us, but I think more me, would recognize. So this is an IFC film, and I know as like a middle school, high school, like I like movies and I want to watch indie movies type deal. IFC movies were such a big deal to me.
Yeah,
of just like seeing that logo, and it was A24 before A24.
That's exactly what I would say.
That's what this is, buddy. If this fucking got an A24 logo slapped on it, it would not
be the biggest horror movie of the year.
Yeah, there's not. You said there was hype around it. There was like horror hype around it.
This I would say buzz, not even hype, buzz.
This would be what like the movie right now, Talk to Me, which I think I'm gonna go see next week. Yeah. This would be that like, oh my god, because put the DVD away, but like on the cover of it, they do the thing where we can't take seriously, but it's like Stephen King said it's the scariest thing he's ever seen, like Alien, and it was like I almost think that's the quote, and it's like, yeah, but Stephen King says it about every fucking.
He says that anytime you put a couple bucks in his pocket.
Yeah.
I like this type of horror too. What I like to call procedural horror, where like kind of like Exorcism of Emily Rose, right, where you have people, and The Conjuring 2 is this, because you got the ghost hunting element of it, where it's like people are trying to scientifically assess a problem that had like a supernatural problem, but they're trying their best to rationalize it, and oftentimes it's actually in a structured setting like a court or the autopsy. The Guillermo del Toro show that just came out on Netflix had an episode that
yeah, there was a mortician episode, I believe.
Yeah, Cabinet of Curiosities.
You mentioned that it's one of my like first notes is what's great is like Brian, they do a great job of establishing who these characters are, right? It's not like a father and son fighting; it's just a father and son who works together.
Yeah, they know each other very well because they work together,
And one of the great things is like they immediately establish that Brian Cox has been around and he's seen everything, and he kind of has an answer for everything. So early on in this autopsy, oh no, I've seen that. Emil Hirsch is like, this is a little weird, and he's like, no, I've seen something like.
Yeah, he can rationalize it a little bit further.
And so like, and because we do start off the movie right, it doesn't start off, in the morgue where like it starts off with finding the body like buried underground, and like immediately notice like it looks like a fresh body, but it's under a bunch of rubble.
Right. Well, there's like a horrific murder scene in a house.
There's this house, and everyone's.
It looks like something out of Red Dragon. Like there's just blood in the hallways, and people scattered all over the place, and
corner
crime scene.
And the coroner or the cop is just kind of like, I know the guys for this job that could solve this because there's this great coroner or mortician that we know of, and that's why they send him to.
like the next town over or something.
Yeah,
And it's like a third. He's their third. He's like a third. Emil
third
Hirsch is
generation,
third generation.
the
They still work
Tildens.
out of the same house that the grandpa built or whatever.
Yeah,
Which we
they
talked about that great location. It looks just the look of it, the wood panel. Nothing, nothing makes for good horror like wood paneling. There's just something so
it
unsettling because
wood
it's like
paneling
trying to be wood paneling's like trying to make you feel at home, but it's fake and you know
and
it's fake.
some like exposed pipe kind of, and there's a clutter around because it's
And like
old
a
and it
real
would
like
move.
weird red wallpaper. Like why would you put red? I sit in
So
a room with red walls.
I didn't even notice the red wallpaper. I mean, like I did, but I immediately reminded me of we get in there and when I was younger, my dad does HVAC and like commercial HVAC, and I used to work with him, and it reminded me a lot of these like places we would go in, and it'd be like the two of you in a two or three of you working on an air conditioner or whatever in a desolate place, but you had to be there for 6 hours, and it's a long day and it's quiet, and sometimes it's like so quiet and it's so old in those spots, it's a little creepy, and it just completely reminded me of that. The setting of the morgue reminded me of working in those spots, and what
Yeah,
even
for
did it further, what I thought such a great addition to this. So in any movie or TV show, when you go visit the morgue, they got to visit the coroner. Um, it's always very, as it should be, serious and clinical and clean and somber. We meet them and they're jamming to like classic rock, and it's just and there's a disgusting
right.
burnt
The
up
very
body.
I would call their autopsy style Dana Scully esque.
Yes, it's
Like she just the
it's
Scully. One of my
work.
favorite things about Scully is like she could just knock out an autopsy, like, and nobody's business, and
It's
that's how
work.
they treat it. It's a job to them.
It's
You know what
work.
I
It's
mean?
been doing it
And
in
Brian Cox, especially, he's a pro. He just does. He's even to the point where Emil Hirsch wants to be like, how did this happen? Why is this like this? Well, I thought this person died of this, but you can see they have whatever. Why? Brian Cox doesn't care about why.
Brian
Just find the cause of death. He doesn't care why the person died that way, just how they died. That's all
Brian
he cares
Cox is, yeah, he has a great line in it. He's just like, we're here to figure out. It doesn't matter what they are or what they did,
about.
just why, or just how, not why. Um, but yeah, and we established that, and we established like early on that it's like you said, this family thing, and there's not much like turmoil between the two. It's truly is a father
I
son
mean, you
relation.
find out a little later there is a little bit bubbling beneath the surface.
Yeah, like
From
Emil,
and Brian Cox and not so much turmoil. They're just dealing with grief. Like
they're
there's
dealing with the
some.
grief of the mother, the his wife, Emil Hirsch's mother passing, and he also wants to move on because he has his girlfriend come
Yeah, you
through.
get that kind of impression that Emil Hirsch maybe is not necessarily wanting to like take up the reins, but then again,
Oh,
he obviously respects what his dad can do and is
well,
like
no, no, there
impressed by his
was,
dad.
well, there was the conversation he has with his girlfriend, who she
Yeah.
says, "Oh, well, what's going to happen when you tell him that you're leaving?"
Oh yeah, that's right.
Like, so it wasn't fully established on, but he had, goals. I don't know if it was to
Yeah.
go to school or get out of
Was he
the
just going to go
family business.
move somewhere else and start his own mortician? I mean, he
Yeah,
has a skill. You would almost not want to waste it,
and but that's a so we establish all of that, and like she comes in and she's all like, "Well, you see my work." It's like, "Yeah, you're a fucking librarian, like,
Yeah.
or you work at a bookstore." And and then I love that scene though, because it is how like someone like that would treat like, yeah, yeah, because she wants to open up, and she's like, "Can I see one of them?" And he's like, "You
Yeah.
really don't want to, like,
Right.
it's,"
Emil Hirsch is trying to protect her
which
from
again we all would.
like you can't. There's some things you can't unsee.
And Brian Cox is like, "Nah, she can, it's
Yeah.
fine."
Nah. Check it out. Brian Cox is kind of fucking with her a little
He's
bit.
fucking with her.
Like.
And it's the tension, and then like he's like, well, open that one, and it has the bell on it because he's like, well, I'm a traditionalist, and he gives the story of bodies used to not always be dead. We put a bell on it because they might wake up, and the little jingle, and she gets all freaked out, and she walks out, and she's like, "What again? Your fault, lady. You asked."
Yeah,
And
of
they're
course
about,
a mortician's gonna fuck with you if you're just a normie and you're in their house, man.
yeah, they're about to go to the movies, or something like that.
Yeah, they're leaving on a date. They're going on a date. Brian Cox is finishing up with whatever they were doing, and then they bring Jane. The cops bring Jane Doe in.
Her body rolls right in. Emil Hirsch is kind of just like, I gotta.
Emil Hirsch, he can sense that she's hot, so he wants to get involved.
It's a big factor in this is that they
he's
didn't.
like, even though she's in a body bag, I can tell.
I need to see all. But they wheel this woman in, and he, Jane. Basically, he's like, you know what? You go. I'll meet up you later. Like, my dad needs help. Like, because he also knows his dad's probably gonna fucking normally just go crazy until he finds the bottom of this, and it's super late, and he's probably like, no, I need my dad to get home too.
Yeah, like I want to help my dad out because he'll be here all night if I don't or whatever. Like, he's
at the same
time semi-interested in the body, I'm sure too.
At the same time, completely understand the girlfriend just being like, I get it, you're here for this, but sometimes it just needs. I need the attention. I get that too. They establish all this without anyone being a weird character, which is great.
Right, she's not a girl who's introduced to be like a shrew to him or to be like a, like their relationship seems
normal.
fine.
It's normal. You can tell his work is cool. So anyway, he stays, and they start with the body. They start going. They have the radio on like normal, and what's the first, and then they just start noticing the things.
Well, they start with they're breaking, they're talking, they're recording, they're talking about the external, the internal, and then I forget what the final part, like the final third thing is, but
it was.
They start with the external examination, and even though there's no marks on her, like her wrists and ankles are shattered, like broken, like bones just shifting around inside.
Yeah, and they're just like, it's so odd because there's no physical marking or damage until they notice the eyes. And Brian Cox, being the forever expert, is just like, well, these eyes wouldn't be, because of the telltale sign, he's like, I think they're gray, but it doesn't make any sense because they were that glassed over blue.
Because she's not no rigor mortis, she's soft and loose, like she just died, but her eyes look like she's been dead a long time.
Yeah, and then they open her mouth, and I swear we'll have opinions to this, listeners, instead of they open her mouth and her tongue is gone, and it was so great because like this one, Cox is like, no man, I know, I've seen this shit before. She was probably sex trafficked, or maybe because these are the okay, because the tongue is like clean incision. Also, so glad they like closed the mouth back up because it's so like disturbing image.
It's upsetting, but I will say I think this is one of the few criticisms I would have of this movie is that they lean into a few. It was obviously they saved money by doing some CGI effects rather than practical.
Yeah, there's a few shoddy.
The tongue is one that's definitely CGI. There's some shots later of like faceless guy that are kind of shaky.
The fire.
Yeah, but the fire, because of the kind of slow motion effect they do on it, I actually didn't mind as much. Like it didn't look real, but it kind of it was like surreal in the right way to me.
Sure. So
there were just a few. This is like a minor quibble.
Oh,
I was just thinking of
Please, if you're something in it you don't like,
I'm gonna fully criticize. I'm
go
gonna
for it,
burn
man.
this thing to the ground.
Oh, we also forgot to establish that there's a cat running around.
Yeah.
He has his own cat. No, I forget. I wrote it down, and I'm blanking on the cat's name. Anyway, there's a cat running around. It's like the area cat. Not like Men in Black in the morgue cat, but it reminded me of the fucking cat in Men in Black.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
That hangs out in the morgue. But so they're just going more and more investigation. Like they're just like, this is super fucking odd, and like weird little things start happening. Like the blood, like some of the blood vials in their fridge burst.
Yeah.
Brian Cox cuts himself on a fucking bone. Like, and the sound.
When they cut her open, like blood pours out, which shouldn't happen. Like,
The sound of just like the bones breaking too, of just like what his job is to get in there.
I do have a note about because as on the flip side, where I criticize a couple of of the CGI choices, they do have some really great practical gore effects because the body when they do finally open her up, the autopsy of the body they're using is very good. It's a very good prosthetic. And I was thinking about how realistic modern gore has gotten and how like special effects people must look at some fucked up shit. You know
They
what I mean?
have
They
to.
must look at some really graphic, like accident footage and stuff like that to get some of the like how realistic some things have gotten. It just makes me a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, there's that, and this is like I said, I give this movie as a recommendation when people are like, I kind of want something that is scary and not just like her normal. We're like, a lot of things aren't like scary to us, and I'm like, oh, I didn't say scary, but like there, it has a creep aspect to it for a few reasons. There's tension, there's some grossness to it, but I don't think overstated its welcome with its grossness.
Mm-mm.
But when they get open that body, um, they see some fucking like the the lungs are burnt out, and he's like, she smoked. And he's like, no, you'd have to smoke 40 packs a day for 100 years to
Yeah,
give you
she's got like
this.
the lungs of somebody who died of third-degree burns. Like her
Yeah,
lungs are literally like crispy.
they did like a little wing.
They look, yeah,
Um,
they look like some croissants in there, all baked up.
um, but yeah, they suspect like the burn off but then
Her internal organs are scarred, like
yeah,
she's incurred stab wounds or
there's
something.
just all these weird freaking things wrong, and the one consistent is nothing's on the outside.
Right. There's
So,
no outward. The only thing on her body was a little bit of like peat moss under her nails and in her
oh,
hair. That
Pete,
was like
yeah,
the
she's
only thing.
yes, that's what it was. Pete, and they were like, how does that happen? It's in her, fingernails, it's in her hair. They're like, she must have been buried or swimming in that shit.
Yeah,
It's
but it's not the type of dirt you see her like excavated from in the first scene where they're like it's not that's not peaty dirt. It was more
mhm,
like red, like red clay or sand or something.
sure.
So
But we're still seeing. So the first sign of oddness actually wasn't that is that the cat we mentioned dies in the vent, and Brian Cox or gets severely injured, and he just kills the he humanely kills the cat because it's the thing he loves, and he's like, well, I'm not going to watch the cat
well,
suffer.
he does say that it was like the last thing that basically was connected to his wife. They
Oh
got
yeah.
cat while she was still there together, and that's like one of the kind of the first times they really touch on the fact that his wife Emil Hirsch's mom is gone.
And I was wondering that too. What had happened. Anyway, he burnt, and he just puts the cat, and they have a cremation, right? Was
Yeah,
that a cremation
yeah,
or some
incinerator,
incinerator
sure, absolutely.
in there? And
Crematorium, maybe I don't know what they call it. Like
yeah.
when people in it.
Anyway, they do that. So they go back to it, and when they go back to it, this is when um this is when like the first real sign of like this makes no sense because right now up into this you have Cox, who's I mean, yeah, we're using the actors' names. Just keep saying, "Well, I've seen it before, man."
Yeah,
Is they find the flower of Jimson weed, which then
yeah,
he
they're
was
in
able
their
to find
stomach contents. They're
in her
doing stomach
stomach
contents.
contents, like folded up, perfect flower. He's like, "Oh, she was poisoned." This apparel. They, he has the book open. 'Cause he has probably all these stories. It's like, see, and she's from up north, which is such an important detail. Like, oh, this is strictly found in like the New England area. Um, okay, because they're in Virginia.
Yeah.
Um, okay, but then more weird shit happens,
Well, they
and
find that's not all they find in her stomach.
well,
Remember,
they find the
it's
piece
like
of
a piece
paper,
of cloth. Like,
yeah,
yeah,
with her tongue in it.
with her teeth, one of her
Oh,
teeth.
sorry, her teeth, the
Yeah,
molars in it,
one of her molars in it. Yeah,
and pull it, and it's in a
real Blair Witch shit.
yeah, it's in satanic looking shit,
It's got
and
a symbol. The cloth has a symbol on it. Weird etching.
and now a crazy ass fucking storm happens, and I love this where it's just like, oh shit, things are going mad, and this is kind of when Emil's like, all right, we should maybe get going.
Right.
There's a storm. He's not even saying there's weird shit going on. He's like, we'll pick it up, and Cox is just like,
Well,
uh,
and also there's definitely an element of like I don't. It's never explicitly said, but I feel like after Cox cuts his wrist, there's supposed to be an element of like obsession almost forming with him, right? Like
yeah,
he's like he refuses to leave this. Like, he has to know what's going on with this body now. Like,
yeah, there's a bit of obsession. I do think that's part of this movie too. Is like there's that like the way like a lot of horror movies do. Like there's that allure that's keeping them there. That may be a little super like because the Jane Doe has a control of everything we learn. You know, so
yeah,
I think part of it is keeping them there in some state, and why he wants to stay, even though the body is like we learn later, like cutting his wrist, like fighting back to actually getting it opened up. Like
yeah,
this made me think. From what we know of the body, this is probably the most anyone's gotten close to this Jane Doe.
yeah, true.
You know, who else is really gonna, surgically open the stomach, flay the skin back.
Yeah,
But when they do flay the skin back, that is when you see like tattoos on the inside. I mean, like
yeah. They
inside,
start to realize there's something going on in between the layers of the skin, and they like kind of peel
truly
it open.
impossible things.
Yeah,
And then this is when like I would say it turns into full blown horror. This is the full blown horror, like the bodies in the morgue fucking wake up and you
right.
hear
The
the
lights
bell.
go out when they come back on. All the doors of the morgue. It gets definitely like becomes a more traditional horror movie at
Mhm.
this point.
And that's when I love we get Brian Cox just being that kind of the grumpy character, like, okay, let's get the fuck out of here, and
Yeah,
you know,
the that classic horror trope of the guy who realizes that it's time to go when it's too late, when they should have gone earlier when Emil
yeah,
Hirsch wanted to
and
go.
and we learn to know they were never leaving.
No, no.
Uh so um he I don't know. He does make note of like this all has to have some sort of purpose just because Brian Cox is just very like worldly and he's like, well, even if it's a ritual, even if it's satanic, there's purpose to all this shit.
Yeah.
Um but yeah, anyway, they're running around and they hear that fucking bell and they like, they peek under that door and you see the foot. I think that is probably the
The
scary,
foot with the bell. Yeah, that's good.
you know.
When is it? Because they definitely talk about when they once they open up the skin and they see all the markings, they definitely like get into a conversation about Salem witches and you know
That's when they so that and that's what that's a big question is. So that's when they go back when they so there's a I guess we'll say so the witch sends Emil Hirsch's girlfriend back to the fucking morgue.
Well, that's the thing. They're trying to get out of the morgue, and it's that it's classic. Like they keep getting fucked, but they get in the elevator. It doesn't go to the right floors, anymore. They can't get
Mhm.
it to move, or like
It's not
they're
moving.
getting chased around. There's like they're seeing the ghosts or the bodies from the morgue are lurking around. Like you said, the bell on the foot and everything. So
That's
they're getting pretty wigged out,
and one of them's coming at them, and they're like as panicked as it be, and they have an axe, and Emil Hirsch just fucking swings the axe at the thing coming. Turns out it was his girlfriend, and it's a fucking heartbreaking scene because
Does her in like dude from The Shining. Just,
that boy starts crying like you're like I know that cry. You really this is not it wasn't a horror movie like move on cry. It was like
yeah.
heavy and deep. So that happened, and that's
It
when
reminded
he's
me
like,
of when they have that similar beat in Strangers, where the guy comes back.
so this is what the so I have a fucking note here about the strangers.
Yeah,
Um, this is similar horror to the strangers because the strangers is the rare horror movie where it's like there's no reason for any of this to be happening other than they were there,
yeah.
and that's the strangers. That is the horror of the strangers.
Mhm.
This is the same thing, just in the supernatural version of it. They are just, and Brian Cox even says in the movie, we're just in this woman's wake.
Yeah, there's collateral damage, really.
Like,
Like
we didn't do anything wrong.
they dug up the body, somebody else dug up the body, then somebody brought the body to them. They're just caught up in it.
We very well could have seen the same movie of the opening scene
Sure.
and vice versa. Like, so It's just funny you mentioned the Strangers. So literally, it was like it's the same concept. The Strangers is you're just in our way. You're home and we're fucking with you.
Yeah.
Autopsy of Jane Doe is
Yeah,
you're
you
the
brought me here. I didn't
you
ask to
brought.
come
I
here.
didn't. I'm some supernatural bitch.
Hell yeah. I'm about to fuck
So
some shit up.
So anyway, so yeah, so to answer your question though, after he kills his girlfriend or kills his girlfriend, at first also I was waiting for like the body wouldn't be there, that it's all in their head too, right?
Yeah, that's what I thought too. Like they would go back and the body wouldn't be there or something. Yeah, totally.
So that's after because they go into the elevator and he's all freaked out, and Emil Hirsch is the one to kind of go, and I do think they have a further conversation. And he's the one to go, we'd be dead by now. We have to go and finish it. And that's when they kind of, I believe, put the 2 and 2. I have the notes here. That's
Well,
episode 3.
it's like basically the idea that the body has been trying to keep them from revealing its secrets, right?
Yeah, and that's when that's when they go Salem witch trials. Papa's already dead and wants to. Oh, the first. No, we missed. Oh, I'm jumping all the fuck around here. I'm sorry. Of course, walking around, but they try to burn her. Sorry, before any of this, they do try
That's
to
the
burn.
first thing they try to do once the like.
They want to get her to the furnace.
Is that before the girlfriend dies too?
Yeah.
It is? Okay.
No, I don't know. I swear we're professionals.
We're terrible
We're not
at this.
professionals. No, we learned the Salem witch trials though to the end, but the corpse. Tommy finds a woman's missing tooth. They decide to leave in the elevator. Oh yeah, okay. Axe. Yeah, Austin hacks through an opening.
And it's after he kills the girl, and that's when they go back. They're gonna burn the body. They're like, we
Yeah,
gotta burn her.
they
We
gotta
gotta destroy her.
They gotta burn her down, and the flame hits, and there's nothing fucking like the fire. She might as well have been a Flex Seal. Like it just
and basically, I like the way she kind of makes the fire Freddy Krueger, like with Johnny Depp's blood. It like shoots up to the ceiling and goes like all out and like covers the whole room.
Attacks the camera. We never met. Like they're filming everything because you film autopsies. Like attacks the camera. Like
I do think at the end though, you get the impression that the cops will find that camera.
I don't know. I thought just like
there was a shot of it tipped over, like while they. Like, I mean,
but it's root, but it was burned. So
yeah, I don't know.
So anyway, we were a little off there. He does use it. The killing of Emma, his girlfriend, comes after the burning because that's when they're like running away because they can't open the doors. That was like the big.
All right.
So anyway, but we still talked about it. I mean, like I'm glad. So. This is when, like you kind of said, the exciting incident. Right after that, they're like, we got to go back. And then this is actually where I have my most uncomfortable moment with the movie is to finish the autopsy. They have to cut open the brain. In any movie, I can't do skull.
Oh, okay.
Puncture like in that one Saw, and then like Saw like 2 or 3 when like
and 3 they
drill into
surgery,
his head. I do it, but it just makes my skin crawl with the brain and the skull, and so they do that and they peel back the head, and that looks so good though. The way they were able to
peel absolutely,
her face.
It all looks like it. Like I said, those practical effects are really great.
And they excuse me, Emil Hirsch, like, they cut a little piece of brain off. And I mean, the brain, you can even tell just from here, like, it looks live a lot. Like, it looks lively. I don't know what a dead brain would look like, but
wet,
he's like stunned. He's like, oh my God, you gotta catch this, Dad.
Well, yeah, because he takes over, looks on the microscope.
The microscope. And it's just an active brain tissue. And what I really love about this movie, and they don't do it at all, except that ending shot, which is a little cutesy, we never get the lazy reveal of the body set up.
I was just gonna say that. I was like, never a blink, never a twitch, never the body sits up, never they turn around and she's standing up on the table with the light coming in through the window behind her. Like that shitty new Exorcist trailer that just came out.
Could have been a cool shot, right? But even with the fire, You never get that. It's always still, because the way
And what you find out is the reason they did it is because they are building to something. They are saving something. You
just
know what I
one
mean?
little,
Like,
and
yeah.
and they are, and sorry, the the shot of the microscope, and that it is set up that you think that body, like the way
Oh,
that scene's
100%. It's
all
framed
framed,
in that classic. Like, if you are a fan of horror movies, you know what to expect there.
like
And the fact that they have the restraint to hold off is very good.
I could only imagine seeing this in a movie theater, being so fully immersed into it and like afraid of that, like the
Oh, yeah,
horror
all keyed up and waiting for
key
it.
in the
Yeah.
waiting, because you were just watching her and not the two of you in the cell, because this movie has a lot of, for that at least, seems like that there's never the release of tension,
Yeah.
right? All horror movies, right? We build it up, maybe it doesn't come immediately, but you get your like scare and then you can move on. This has that in certain moments, but scenes like that, it just goes, oh, okay, the
Yeah.
reveal she's alive, and that's all we need to know. Like you said, it's uh it's a procedural still.
Right.
But that's when they're like, okay, let's put it back, and this is when we do get the Salem witch trial stuff. He reads it, and it's Leviticus 20:27. I did
Hmm.
write down the passage, and apparently there's a lot of translation of the passage, so this is just what Google came up with, which wasn't exactly what it said in the movie. A man or a woman who is a medium or a necromancer shall surely be put to death. They shall be stoned with stones. Their blood shall be upon them. So basically, it's
Yeah, they come to term. They come to the, but like again, like the movie, the question that feels like they're posing, and I can't remember where they land on it, is that she actually wasn't a witch,
no.
but perhaps the torture that they did to her to try to prove she was a witch is what made her a witch, or kind
Yeah,
of like maybe not even a witch, but more like maybe cursed her, kind of like the mummy,
yeah.
where because of the horrible torture, she's now like this kind of cursed
She's a
thing.
curse. It's all it's curse. It's like, because that's the question, right? It's left through. That's why I almost wish this movie was more popular. There would be all these like theories and everything. There's very little of them out there.
Sure.
Is is Jane a witch? Or that was my two questions. Is she a witch, or is she cursed by witches? I like to believe she's cursed by witches. And like Cox, who is very, adept in history, he's like, or there's one other option to this. There was never any, that was all hooey. There was
Yeah,
never any of that. But the one thing that I think could be, maybe she's the original one. Maybe she's the person to cause the Salem witch trials hysteria
yeah,
without
yeah.
being
That's
outed
true.
herself.
Sure, that could be. I could see that.
Because it is interesting. This is one of those movies where, like, if it did have larger popularity, which I'm glad it's one of those hipstery things. Like, glad it doesn't, but
Yeah, it's nice to have your own cult classic sometimes,
like
you know.
we could be on our own, like, Jane Doe origins, and there could be an interesting Salem witch movie about this
Yeah, sure.
being, or not. It could ruin it completely. Because some of the best part is this vagity and this mystery of, like I said, the strangers type thing of, yeah, the chick just kind of came into your life and it's gone. I mean, it's
Yeah,
one inciting incident, but where we get to is Brian Cox. Um, he's almost come to terms. He loves his son. He doesn't want to lose anyone else.
yeah,
And he goes, I think she just wants to be like, he pleads with her. He's just like, take me, save my son, and do what you need to do, right?
well, we find out that he's feeling guilt because now did his wife? I again, like I swear to God, I was watching, but did his wife kill herself, or did she have like an illness that she didn't tell him about, and he was too wrapped in his work and he didn't notice?
I always thought the second one.
Okay, I wasn't sure, and I didn't think, I didn't know if I missed a line of dialogue that would have clarified it or not. But either way, the point is whether it was that she was having a mental illness that made her kill herself, or she had a physical illness that killed her slowly. his whole thing is like, I wasn't present for her. I didn't pay attention. I should have noticed. I pride myself on being observant, and I didn't see this.
So that
Like,
makes me think, and like I said, I've seen this a few times, and I'm paying attention too. That maybe it was maybe it was an unspoken sort of suicide, or something more of that nature, and not a sickness, because it is very unspoken, and usually
yeah,
usually if it is a sickness, a cancer or something, it's talked about, and it would be a long. So maybe, I don't know, because it sounds weird, and it's just I just have the Wikipedia here, which isn't the best. There's no answer for
no, no, I'm sure not.
that. So I'd like to believe. Um, let's see. Let's see if Google answers this for us. In Autopsy of Jane Doe.
Yusef, you cut all this Googling out.
Nah, you can leave it in. Oh, it says okay. They say dies due to depression. So
So she
just
killed
doesn't.
herself then?
All I got is
You
dies
can't
due.
die of depression. I mean, you can, but you usually, like, it's because you do something to you.
Yeah,
Like,
let's just. Well, there's one of these shitty Jane Doe ending explain videos on here when you don't need this one.
just splice the whole thing in right here to tell the people who are watching. They can.
I'm gonna say that it was assumably, it's unknown to us. We're just gonna go with that she was probably suicide, but I think, like you said, there's up for interpretation. I took it as an illness. My watches. So he's grieving with that. He wants to sacrifice his son, and this is actually one thing I do think Wikipedia does add well, is he offers himself the curse, and he's just like, let me feel the pain that you felt, and vice versa. So this is what, all of a sudden, his ankles start to crack. He starts to not being able to breathe. I mean, everything's going wrong, and his son's watching, and she's revitalizing. Everything is, she's healing as this is going on. The witch
Oh yeah.
is healing as she's going on.
I was say, do we? That kind of happens. Do we see that? Is that on?
It's in the back. You just see
I
her on
thought
the
it was
table.
kind of more like a reveal at the end when the cops come in that she's like completely healed, like she's
I
back to
just thought,
normal.
no, I don't think we see it fully, but I see it as like,
Okay.
you see her in the background. It's not
I
like a
didn't know if there
slow
were
thing.
shots of her like closing up or anything
No,
like that. That seems like
no,
something this movie wouldn't do.
no. This movie wouldn't do that. The closest thing we get to that is, like we kind of talked earlier, like it's so out of place seeing like the dead like the dead person walking with like opening up the
Yeah.
sewn mouth. That's real out of place for this movie. It's creepy in the scene, but
Well, I mean, I definitely expected that even when they were introducing the bodies in the morgue, I was like, oh, so these bodies are going to be up walking around, obviously. Although I did miss, where's the burned guy? He didn't get much play.
nah. Maybe they just didn't have the effects budget.
Yeah, they didn't have the guy like did the prosthetics the one day for the autopsy. He's like, never again, no way.
Get the fuck out of here, bitch.
I'm not fucking doing your movie, dude.
Come on. Oh, you got Brian Cox? Big deal. Big deal. You don't even speak. You just speak Swedish. This is your first non-American. No, but but that's what happened. So it's a real sad scene because he's reaching for his knife, his like scalpel knife.
Yeah.
But Brian, like, what Emil Hirsch also doesn't realize, like, he asked for this. He wants this to happen, so he comes over to save him and has to kill his dad to put him out of his misery, which at first I thought stopped the process. Like, where I thought we were going with this, maybe did stop the process.
Like, that would be enough.
That maybe she gets up and starts walking around once she's able to accept the taking on of his full life. And, Emil Hirsch ended it. And that's why, our final incident is what it is, because everything seems fine. And, by the way, there's been this song on the radio that's been playing,
a creepy song coming on the radio, obviously. Classic horror stuff.
yeah,
Right?
Open Up Your Heart and Let the Sun Shine In is playing, and it's communicating through the, it's we're getting a little bit of Transformers through the radio too with what this radio wants. She's also being able to fuck around and like give fake news broadcasts and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's true.
So, but he's dead, and Emil Hirsch hears the cop yelling, oh, we're trying to get you guys out of here. A tree fell down. And he's like, okay,
Yeah.
it's here. And the door's not opening, and boom, or like jump scare. Brian Cox is with the glass eyes. He falls to his death. Brian Cox is actually still in the fucking morgue room.
Yeah, he was never
Uh,
there, obviously.
Next morning happens, or there's,
The cops get in, obviously.
but the
You
big
know,
thing we hear is on the radio going, another 4 days of bright and sunny. There was never
yeah,
any storm. They were never trapped down there. It was all put on by Jane Doe.
yeah,
To me, like I said, it works so well and it's so
yeah.
creepy.
And then, like I said, we have the cops are kind of, it's, again, assessing the situation and finding all these bodies and everything, and you see that Jane is again completely untouched,
But
pure, not
my
unharmed. And then the build of having a yoga master control her movements for hours on end while she lay naked on a table, and never showing the slightest movement, not doing the sitting up part, and not having her blink her eyes the whole time, is so that at the very, very end, the very last shot.
in the ambulance, because it's going to another thing, and I really actually love this part. The cop kind of doesn't even entertain the idea. He goes, no, I've known this family for 25 years or whatever.
Yeah,
Whatever you think went down last night is not what you're thinking. Basically,
yeah,
like, we're not going to entertain that he murdered him and all this shit.
yeah.
So I love that. But he goes, get it out of my county. And like you said, the last
Right, just
shot,
ship it somewhere,
it's the
anywhere.
it's the ambulance, and the song comes on the radio. Just changes, which the guy should be going, what the fuck? And one toe moves, and you hear the bell ring, and then credits.
Cut to credits.
And it's a nice way, because like I said, it's a little cute ending, and maybe it could even see that probably being a studio of the bell, but it works because it is like, it does give me that, okay, like, 'cause it's just this
Yeah,
cycle. It's a good way to end this movie that, in a weird way, could kind of never have an end.
yeah, truly.
The way that entity of her works. Yeah, I I don't know. I just find this to be like such a well-contained horror that does have these mysteries and interpretations, and it's not as run-of-the-mill as it should be. It's not. That's what I really
Yeah, I think it's
love with.
definitely, it's really, so I'll tell you, it reminds me of a movie I really like. I did have DVD bunker on it a long time ago. It was an IFC movie as well. It's called Pontypool.
It's
Um,
familiar.
yeah, it's about a guy at a radio station. A couple people. It's a bottle movie. A couple people working at a radio station where basically a zombie outbreak is breaking out outside. So like
Mhm.
all the, but you're not really seeing, everything's kind of done through him taking calls on the radio show, and like
Very
so it's a
similar, yeah.
very dialogue heavy and very like description heavy, and it reminded me a lot of that. And I still don't necessarily think I love it as much as a lot of other people do, but this is a very, very solid horror movie.
Yeah.
A very solid couple of performances from Brian Cox and Emil Hirsch. Like, this isn't one of those ones where just because it's not my favorite, but I fully understand why it would be someone's favorite. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh, yeah.
some things that you're like, people love it more than me, but I get it. You know,
Yeah.
like,
And like I said, I've recently become in love with it. I'm not
yeah.
gonna, so I like that, you acknowledge that.
Oh
Um,
yeah, and like I said, it's not. It's one of those ones where, yeah, it's not. I couldn't.
I
I can't
think
be.
this,
I can't be. Sometimes when you're being rude on the internet, you can be dismissive of things for no reason,
yeah,
and just. But like, I couldn't. I couldn't do that with this
I
one.
think this becomes I think I'm not favor. If this movie is 20 minutes longer, I'm not in favor of it. I think
Yeah,
it
the
has a nice
tightness of
pace to it.
the presentation definitely helps it for
For,
sure.
you know, in a weird way, it's a movie that I wouldn't call a slow burn, but it has the slow burn tendencies with actually
Yeah,
giving stuff along the way.
yeah. I would say. on that note, even like it's similar to for me like a movie like It Follows, where it
Okay.
might have even benefited from a like maybe one more scare somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, yeah. I think
Uh, not that it's too slow or anything. I actually think it's
there could
paced
be
better
another.
than It Follows, but that was another movie where I was like, maybe just one more scare kind of in the middle here. You got a lull, you
There's a
know.
little wall. I think it. Yeah, yeah. I'll drink to that.
I'll allow it. I'll allow it.
But yeah, it's just I'm glad we were able to talk about it and revisit it in this
Yeah, I
capacity.
was happy to actually revisit it. It was one that, like
Um,
I said, I always feel that way, especially about movies like that go on, because a lot of the movies get buzz and then you see them and then whatever. But this is one that has definitely maintained its popularity among like horror people. Like this is one that will get brought up. You know what I
yeah,
mean? So I
it's like I
always
said, it's
wanted to
right
go back.
now.
Always, I knew it would be worth going back to.
Right now, it's been my oh you want something
Yeah.
that's gonna as horror people, you're always being asked, oh, what's one to watch, and I'm always like, I'm not gonna recommend a slasher because it's not. You got to just be into that shit to want that shit.
Yeah.
And everyone always goes, we've talked about this all the time. Who's it's like, yeah, after the age of 13, they're not scary. Like, I don't know what to
Yeah.
tell you. Um, so this has become one where I'm like, okay, it's scary, but I'm not giving you something that's so fucking out there that they're like, whoa. I'm not giving you Infinity Pool, put it that way.
Right, right. Like I'm
I,
keeping it in the realm of something that you would like, yeah.
I, I was asked recently, we were talking in the
It's
office
more
about Infinity.
traditional in its style, you know.
I always feel like such a dickhead when I do this. Was talking about Infinity Pool in the office, and the one girl who was asking about it, I knew that's the type of movie she'd be into. So I said, "Oh, you'd love it." And the other guy go, "It's not. I don't think
It's
you.
not for you.
It's not for you." And I was, "Huh?" I'm like, "I'm not trying to be rude. Just I, our conversations
You're
are
a
good."
dumb guy. That's what I'm saying.
So so anyway, yeah, that's but Autopsy of Jane Doe, I think that's good, like not starter, because I do think it's pretty heavy, but like
Oh yeah,
um but yeah, and also just their performances are great. You don't even have the rare thing. um so I feel like, and I could shut myself up soon. I feel like movies that are contained like this, like our bottle movies, or that have limited casts, if there's six cast members that have talking lines, five of them are good actors and one is like obviously doesn't belong there. No one here is complete. No one's out of their weight class here,
no.
which was nice because it could have easily been. Everyone was real good, but there was one off performance. I know he was in the movie
Yeah,
for two
yeah,
seconds,
like
but
the cop or the deputy or even the girlfriend could have been,
yeah. And I felt bad. Like I said, I empathized with the girlfriend and the people in this movie. Um, so that sucks. I was kind of hoping for the reveal briefly of that she wasn't a body on the floor.
Yeah. Or
That it,
that the body was somebody. I have this in my notes. When the cat was killed, I was like, I'm sick of seeing animals die in
yeah,
horror movies. Fucking anytime you're gonna kill an animal, make it a cop instead. Have it be a cop. Kill a
that
cop.
new goal, different movies, but new goal. Yeah, I think I don't know. It would have been one of those weird things where it's like maybe if he had a bird down there, it would have been a little easier.
Did it have to be a cat?
Um, yeah, yeah. There was a movie covered on here that I was like, ooh, they killed the dog, and I was like, ooh, lazy horror,
Yeah.
lazy to show that you mean business and seriousness. This kind of didn't find like lazy in the sense. I just took it as like, oh, we're like there's trouble afoot, and like
Right. Well, yeah, that's kind of how it was used in
I
this
think
one.
I think adding the element. I agree with you, Brian. By the way, with like let's stop killing the animals for like cheap thrills. I think adding the element of that, like this is the last connection to his wife of a living thing that's not his son,
Yeah.
made it maybe a little bit more of a palatable death.
Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, it's a good. It's just a good movie. I like I said, I could kind of keep
No,
going
absolutely.
on about the movie itself. Like just the mystery of the reveal. I'm a sucker for it.
Well, and I'm always up. I like a good witch movie. We've been bandying about some other witch movies we might want to do. So,
Yeah,
I'm into, and that was a very popular thing. The Witch, obviously, Hereditary. Like we were in a. This came out in a era of witch horror. I would
it's
say.
right. Yeah, it's right on the. It's right there. I mean, yeah. Oh my God, you're right. That's right. The witch horror, and this is a low key witch horror too. It's not in your face, which is
Right.
like
Well, like I said, it kind of slowly reveals itself. It kind of and which is fun. Like I said, I think the mystery element is
I'm
definitely
sticking
it's
with my
done
theory.
well.
I'm sticking with my theory though that she is Salem's original and only witch, and
Okay.
she's the reason historically that there are things going on around it and has just been at place after place. Because when we find her, she's pretty, like you said, the peat. They mentioned the peat in her, like
Yeah.
she's pretty buried in the ground. Like that's
Yeah.
like the oddity of the first shot is that there's like it's like everything. It looks like there's a suicide. It looks like there's it looks like literally how the ending looks for Emile Hirsch and Brian Cox, just in reverse. But she's buried underground. Like it looks like they buried her underground, and we don't
Yeah.
know what happened.
Yeah. Did the people there at the house dig her up? Were they trying to rebury her? Like we don't know what stage they were in. We don't. And I like that the movie is fine with just leaving that. Like
We don't need it.
all that happened is her body was either getting uncovered or about to be covered, and she set everybody off, and she cleaned house here. Like,
It's perfect. But no, anyone listening, I mean, if you're still listening, highly recommend.
yeah, it's a good one for sure.
Yeah. So, do you have anything to add that we didn't really cover in this one?
No, I think we touched on everything I want to touch on. It's like I said, it's a nice bottle movie. It's effective. And it's got good performances, and I think that's it. I think we covered everything.
Yeah, we're all good. Well, as always, you could find us on whatever version of Twitter is out there these days at Hercules
You're only gonna find
1.
me on Twitter at Hercules, and I swear to God, if Twitter goes away, I'm just gonna be done with social media. And I'm not gonna be one of those people who's like, "Oh, I'm done," but you maybe find me on Blue Sky. No, fuck that.
Okay, well,
Out. I'm
I still
out.
have to promote and things, so we'll see. But I'm still staying with the ship until it goes down, and
Oh hell yeah!
it'll
I'm
be
definitely watching Twitter burn. I want to be right. I'm getting my front row seat.
it'll be there. We'll have some fun. Stay frightful, everyone. Welcome to Flyover State of Fear.